Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hazardous Play. I am one of the hosts here, Legendary Neurotoxin. Joined with me is Dygz and Reverend Kremchek here on the Theory Forge channel. We are not only regulars on the Theory Forge channel, but we also have a little bit of zombie talk show history in the past with Dead Feature Rant. So now we've turned our sights here to Moving Hazard. And on this first episode, we are so amazingly lucky to have both Kedhrin and Chuck joining us here. Thank you very much, guys. Really, really awesome pleasure and honor to have you guys. Super cool. So, before we get into the discussion, I just want to let you guys give a moment to kind of tell everybody a little bit about the game and how things have been going, and of course that PAX build was pretty neat too.
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks for having us, first of all. And yeah, we've been working hard on moving hazard, so it's kind of, getting down to close to early access. So we'll have more information on when that is. I know at PAX we said March, so March is around the corner. So there's definitely been sleepless nights and a lot of fun kind of internal competitions right now between the game or on the game. So yeah, and
Yeah, I was curious. Can you guys tell us a little bit about the basic concept? And I'm very curious to understand how IllFonic became involved and what the role of IllFonic is in conjunction with PsyOp.
yeah, definitely. Basically, PsyOp Games, Rocco Scandizzo over there. He's the managing director of PsyOp Games department. And if you guys don't know, PsyOp basically is um, they're an advertising and agency and VFX company. So they've done a lot of like really cool stuff in the advertising space. And Rocco was brought on to kind of help run the game department. So this was we knew Rocco from a long time ago. Probably a few years back. Well, I guess not that long ago, but yeah, 3 or 4 years back, he worked with us when he was at CAA. So he basically was always really into Nexus. He kind of came on board after Nexus was already out, and basically really liked the game. Thought we're a good team to make a first-person shooter, and it was an idea that him and Christian Cantamesa came up with about, hey, let's make this game where you weaponize zombies, and they approached Kedra and I, and we thought it was a really cool idea. We thought it was interesting, but when we started kind of digging into it, we're like, yeah, this is really interesting, but it's going to be there's a lot of moving parts in making a game like this. So we kind of sat down, and then Kedron started digging in with them and on the design, and we just started kind of going into prototype mode. So I don't know if you have anything there to kind of add about the early days of Moving Hazard, Kedron.
It's pretty funny because whenever we first started prototyping with the concept of moving hazard, we we took Nexus and we were just like, okay, we have a game that works, so let's use some of the basic functionality. I mean, there's a gun, you shoot, fire, right? And so we were initially thought we are gonna play with that and see what we can do. And it was so funny because we had like these billboard zombies. There was like just on like little sprites, and there's an angry zombie, and you just see these like sprites running around like trying to bite you and stuff. So it was really cool to like play with that theory. But eventually we were just like, all right, this is a mess. So we started over Unreal Engine, and it was crazy. We found out that it was way faster for us to start over from scratch and Unreal than try to prototype in Nexus. It was just like just because Nexus it's an arena FPS game, and you're trying to make it feel like something it's not. So it was really good to be able to get started, and it took us a bit to get the prototype to a point to where we were like, okay, we understand where we're going, because it is such it's a different like kind of approach, right? Like you have this multiplayer session based gameplay, and there's zombies everywhere. Okay, so that's okay. Most people were like, okay, that's not anything new, but controlling them in a weapon sense, and there's AI running everywhere. You got servers hosting it. The action's intense. It's nonstop action. Like it's really a different experience. Whenever you pick it up and actually start playing it, you're just like, this is pretty crazy. And especially the mechanics themselves were just like, man, how are we going to make this work? Because you're in this chaotic FPS environment of kill and blast everything, but now we want you to also take care of the zombies, but also use the zombies. Um, so it was really cool, like playing around with that idea for a while, and then I think now today, and why we're going into early access is it's like we feel like we have that concept down, but the best thing about early access is now we can even see what it's like in the chaos of the real world and see what the players are going to be doing, and like that's when I think we're going to really, really, really dial it in, because it's already in a good place, but to get it to that extra point, we need all that feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the kind of touch on that, I mean, the PAX build was really cool because there was a lot of like, first of all, it kind of takes a special partner to kind of make a game like this and allow us to make a game like this, right? Like, that's what was cool about PSYOP is I don't think it would have flown in traditional areas. They may they may not be as into like the unique idea and allowing that to be kind of tested and iterated on, because there were some challenges there, but them kind of being the company they were, being different in kind of the ad space and everything, I think it worked out really well for us as far as from a game standpoint. But I think also just getting feedback and getting out to early access is so important to us, because there's even just been so many cool little like ideas that people have thrown out at PAX, and just things that they're like, oh, can you do this or can you do that? And just even watching people play the game, there was a whole different strategy that some people would use. Like, I remember doing interviews and I'm like, oh, this one device, the LRAD, is used to kind of build your defense and stuff like that, and we would start seeing
talk
people
about
using
that.
it.
Tell us what the LRAD is real quick.
Cool, yeah. So the LRAD is basically, it's kind of a little tiny device. I forgot I have no camera on, so I'm like putting my hands up and everything. But it's a device that you basically hold in your hand and you can set down, and it sprays out a pheromone, and that pheromone will actually have the zombies become your ally for a period of time. So that LRAD will destroy after like 30 seconds, and once it destroys, they no longer become your ally. But what they do is they not only attack you, they stay away from you, but yeah, and then go after your enemy basically. So it's
that
cool.
The LRAD, or is that the PAM?
So the LRAD,
LRAD
pulls zombies in. So like, call a bunch of zombies from the area. They'll bring them into a spot, and they'll become your ally. So when enemies come near you, near that LRAD, they'll start attacking the enemy, but they don't go engage the enemy. Like the PAM, they go out and seek and destroy kind of thing.
Okay.
Right.
This is for like trying to hold a point down or build a base, or you want to create a choke point of zombies. You place the LRAD, and they'll all come to the spot, and you're just like, you can meat shield behind them, so you're just like fighting dudes through the zombies that are just kind of standing there, and they're ignoring you. But as soon as the LRAD gets destroyed, if you're just sitting there ignoring them, you're going to get a bunch right next to you, and as soon as the LRAD's gone, they're all going to come right at you. It's
You just gotta I was gonna say, you gotta feel like a real badass when you catch them like that. You get 2 or 3 people in a little pack of zombies, and you just come through with a heavy machine gun, or the LMG or whatever, and 150 rounds later, it's like, oh, you guys are dumb.
Yeah, and that was what was
local radiation.
kind of.
What does the LRAD stand for, real quick? Do you know what LRAD stands for?
It was
I don't remember. There's so
it was
many
something
acronyms
a tractor device. Yeah, it was like something like a tractor device,
Long
basically.
range attraction device.
There we go, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think what was cool about seeing that at PAX, right, is like I would always use that when I was capping a hill, or use like capture and hold. It's like, okay, there's zombies, I need to get them away from me. I want to put this down, and it also is going to protect me so that if someone comes around the corner, the zombies are going to go after him. But what I noticed is that there was this one guy at PAX that would just like run up behind someone that might have been fighting someone else, and he would just place it right behind them. and then run off, and then the zombies would just like kill him because they became allied with him within that radius of where the LRAD was, and then they would go after the enemy unless that guy had to leave. So he was also using it to clear out certain objective points, and I was like, oh, that's cool. He's using it as an offensive weapon. So it's really cool to kind of, I mean, that's why we're so excited about early access, is because, like, when you develop games, you're kind of in a bubble. And I think early access now is kind of given us the opportunity to say, hey, let's get it out there. Let's get it at a cheaper cost to the end user, for kind of checking it out early and supporting us. But also it's like, we want your ideas and feedback. It's not, we're pushing as hard as we can to make a polished game at early access, but it's really like, okay, well, we have the funding to go to full release, but where does that funding get spent from here on out? Like, what works, what doesn't work? Where can we reallocate the funds? What are some, what are things the community wants? And there was just, we found that, like, one thing that happened is the really bad players would run out of ammo, and then there wasn't really a way for them to get more ammo. And we kind of were going for that because it's like, we want to punish you a little bit for like shooting too many zombies, like, because we do want you to learn to weaponize them. But at the same time, we found that like the really good players would run out of ammo and run out of like items, and there was no way for them to really get it back unless they killed someone. And even then there was a % chance that they might just get like more bullets, and sometimes they would want, both, like a weapon and a bullet. So it was all really cool to just see it get out there. And it's something that it, with smaller teams and smaller companies like us, IllPhonic and PSYOP, it's like, we're definitely the definition of indie, where at a large publisher that could be probably focus group to death, and it either goes in the right direction or it doesn't. But we don't have that kind of time or funds to really deal with that. So it's like, well, yeah, let's get it out to the user and kind of see like what works and what doesn't. And a lot of that's like easy tweaks for us. So
Cool. I was actually
Yeah, one of
wondering
the
about
things.
that with the being able to replenish during battle and what's going to be done with that. And I'm sure that's probably going to have a lot of fine tuning and definitely probably be based on mode of gameplay and potentially even the type of map, indoor, outdoor, and what kind of circumstances would be involved. But I could see a lot of fun and really uniqueness going into that.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, most of the reloading during matches is when an enemy dies, you want to pick up their loot. So that's most of it. So it encourages players to fight each other even more, So
And there are score streaks that do like give the team more ammo and more stuff, but yeah, it is definitely kind of an interesting problem. It's like, okay, well, like, we still want to discourage new players, or I mean, sorry, a lot of the new players end up going after the zombies right away because they're like, oh, it's a zombie game, let me just shoot them all. And it's like, okay, hold on a second. So we kind of want to discourage that from happening, and that is the fact of like, you have to kind of think about conserving ammo, but then what happens with the good players, and that's kind of the balancing we're trying to like really dig into now. So
Yeah, that was one of the things that I noticed, is that you could get a lot further with the knife than using the gun if you're just trying to get by, little packs of 1-2 zombies at a time. That stealth, yeah, they'll make their groans, and that chatter will kind of summon a couple over, but a trickle of 1 to 2, it seemed like the health regeneration would stay on top of it. You could just sit there, grab and stab, and I love that it's a grab and stab. I hate swinging in the air. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
So really glad to see it.
yep.
yeah,
And that was
definitely.
all around. If they do surround you, the delay, the grab and stab delay, it is balanced. So like if you are in a corner and there's a ton of zombies, they'll start attacking you during that whole process. So you're essentially letting yourself become vulnerable to either another player shooting you during that, or if you're trying to stab and grab during, when you're surrounded, it's like the other zombies are going to probably get to you.
Right, right. Yeah, it's definitely just clearing light details, not for heavy situations.
Mhm.
Kremchek wrote in chat discouraging new players starting with early access, which reminded me I was having problems starting. Um, I was having some graphics issues, I think. Is the default going to be Ultra for all the graphics? Because
So we're
we have a full range of graphic settings and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's starting
yeah, and
default
we've been kind of
with Ultra might
optimizing.
not be the way to go.
Yeah, yeah, we've been kind of optimizing and playing with like a bunch of settings and stuff like that. We're trying to really dial in what like all like it's cool. This last week we've gotten it really scalable to all kinds of machines. But yeah, it's UE4, so it's a lot of our guys are like, cool, let's go crazy. And now it's like, okay, we got to reel it in, right? Like we got to be able to scale. So yeah, I think we were looking into doing like a little more auto detection of what your card is, and then kind of doing a recommended spec from there, whether it be like low, medium, high, or ultra. So that's kind of what we're toying with, but we'll probably at early access um, have it set to like medium or high, and then from there people can kind of tweak with the settings based on their machines. So
Yeah. So one of the things that really attracted me, because I'm normally not into first-person shooters, is this indirect combat of being able to weaponize the zombies. And the story with H1Z1. One of the things that was drawing me in there was the radio station. I mean, the radio play that they did right before they went to early access, a few months before they went to early access, and it was really that story. And I was trying to see how I would fit my story and character needs into a survival game, because I normally don't play survival games. What I like about what I've seen of Moving Hazard so far is that I can see how to fit my character and character growth within that world. And I wanted to play that trailer video in the beginning, because that had the same impact for me that H1Z1's radio drama had for me. Just that change of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star was kind of dark and really sets the tone for the world itself.
yeah, definitely. I
yeah,
mean, there's definitely, I think, there's a lot of levels of story to Moving Hazard, and we're kind of playing in one particular part of the world. So I don't know how deep I can get into the story side, but that's definitely where like Christian from PSYOP kind of comes in, is he's like the story dude, right? Like he was a writer on Red Dead Redemption and a bunch of other games, I think, like Shadows of Mordor and all that. So it's kind of like, so he kind of has this whole world, and we're essentially taking the 50 years after the zombie apocalypse has kind of happened, and that's where we've set Moving Hazard. So the idea is it's you kind of have these I guess, what would you call those, Kedhrin, like towns or civilizations of people, like
Well, we have the two
you know
factions. We have the SoCal Protectorate and the Texan Confederation.
yes.
so, yeah. So it's essentially the military faction. So in this world, it's I feel like I'm repeating Christian, but I heard him talk about it so many times that it's but essentially it's the military is the thing that actually really survived after the zombie apocalypse. The zombie apocalypse happened because they were playing around with trying to weaponize zombies, like people and like the populace, and sharing like viral, and it kind of of course it backfired, and everything goes bad. But in this world, they always show like the military falling apart, usually in zombie apocalypse types of scenarios. But in this world, the military is the thing that survived. And so essentially, every level you see is contested areas where there's a resource that's heavily desired by the factions, these military factions that have kind of split off and became their own entities over time. And then so they're constantly butting heads in all these areas where they're contesting over the resources.
And is there any, can you say in maybe a general sense, I don't know if we're supposed to figure that out once we get in game, but is there a general flavor you can tell us about why we might want to choose SoCal over Texan?
I would assume it's purely gameplay. Never, it's not something that you're like you're actively engaging one side or the other. It's it's definitely there's not a direct correlation of if you choose a faction you have a leverage over another or anything like that. It's purely aesthetic. Um, but I would
Yeah, and I
say
think
if you really like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people who live in Texas are probably always going to choose them because they're just it's Texas,
Well, I
right?
mean, it's easy to double down on that. Just have the change the audio so you've got a real like Texas cowboy guy, and when you win a mission, don't mess with Texas.
Right.
yeah, we had a I mean that was when those guys kind of first brought the idea to us, and I saw the Texan faction. I was kind of like, I'm like, ooh, like we could maybe definitely go more character with it, right? But we don't want to be like we don't take ourselves seriously, right? Like too seriously. But we also don't want it like too like redneck rampage, right?
Mm.
I mean, but the cool thing is that at PAX, like, well, we actually had this problem of it always being like, we were playing 2v2, and we'd have this problem with it always being like 3v1 because we didn't have auto balancing in yet, and which was something that I'm just like, oh yeah, everyone's gonna auto select and we'll be fine. I didn't really think too much about it, and so everyone's like, being in Texas and PAX South, they're like, oh yeah, hell yeah, like Texas, and they would all pick the Texan Confederation, and then it would always be like three guys against one guy. So it was actually a big problem, and then we would have to like tell people like, hey man, do you think you can switch to the other team? And they're like, I don't want to play as Californian. Like what are you talking about? Like, so I grew up in California my whole life. I was born there, so I thought it was cool that I'm always like, oh cool, Californian. But yeah, it's cool. It's like it kind of, I think, will allow people in certain regions to play. And I think as the game, we do have other factions, planned. And as the game gets bigger, I mean, we'll kind of have to see what areas survived, right? And I think, right now, it is kind of SoCal and it is Texan, because if you look at our zombies, it's very much, they were designed to look like they were in those areas, like kind of that Southwest, United States, where it's like hot, a lot of sun bake, and there, it may be, if we have like a New York faction at some point, they might be very different looking. They might have a lot less sun and more
Super ink.
more wet. Yeah,
Super.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So it's so it kind of all played into the fiction, which was cool of the location. But yeah, there's definitely not like a, if you play one or the other, you're going to have an advantage. So
Oh, I meant more for lore reasons. Because what's I have fun with capture and hold. I mean, I love that I have a reason to go out and do stuff, which I didn't really feel. I don't know. It seems like survival might be a really strong motivator, but it wasn't for me for H1Z1. But I love to go into places and do capture and hold or have specific, not even so much for me, I'm not really into the killing directly stuff. So I like to go in and have, tasks or missions where I'm going to scavenge for something maybe, or try to steal plans or something like that. So capture and hold for me was a lot of fun, just playing the little bit that I was able to play. So I was wondering if there's, if there's lore reasons for SoCal to try and hold a spot versus the Texan Confederation to try to hold a spot. That kind of thing.
Yeah, you're going to hear a lot
Story-wise,
of that.
yes.
I was gonna say that the lore you're gonna hear is got to be a lot through the what we call battle chatter. So you're gonna hear the voiceover. I mean, everything that's in there right now is extremely temporary, but so it's
Yeah.
yeah. It's gonna be like kind of match starting. You'll hear them talk about it. So it's not just
Okay.
completely like, oh, why am I doing this? It's like there's a little bit of communication from the game telling you. A little bit about what's going on with the lore in the world.
Kremchek, we haven't heard. Have you said anything yet?
I don't think
I don't think so. No, one thing
Do you
that
have questions? Yeah.
one thing that I did want to say is that regarding factions is that I've I've always kind of liked being the outsider in when it comes to factions, and I think it would be neat to have like a outcast faction. Like you have your California, you have your Texas, you have whatever else, and then you have the ones that just didn't fit anywhere, or maybe got kicked out of a faction or a number of factions that just kind of form their own group.
I can
Yeah.
see like a nomadic convoy actually working out pretty well.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have played with the idea of other factions and expanding upon that. It's not something we're completely closed off to yet, but I mean it's something we're still seeing as we go through in early access, and if all the feedback is let's get some more aesthetic choices, it's something we'll seriously consider, but it's not anything currently planned.
It actually kind of goes into a little bit of more political territory, but I could actually see like a religion actually forming its own militia and being not necessarily a regionalized sort of thing, but
I thought you were going to say Republican or Democrat.
There we go. That could be like the, whoever gets the nominations, right? We could totally do like a little bonus.
Or you could have your
like,
Republicans and they get guns, and your Democrats don't get guns.
Yeah, somehow they got preserved.
Political
50
joke,
years.
sorry.
Yeah, no.
We got it. We got it. We got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. SoCal, no guns. Texas, guns. Lots of
Right.
guns.
Lots of good.
Can you tell us a little bit about the different classes that are planned?
Yeah.
Because I think I see. So, like I saw on the forums, there was from the dev documents, there was an assault class, but by the time I got to the end of that document, it was called the scavenger, which didn't really meet my expectations for what the label would be. So, how many classes will we see in early access, and what are the different ones?
So all three of the classes are they're essentially broken into light, medium, and heavy, and they are balanced to be different in how they engage players in PvP and how they engage zombies. So you have two different strategies you have to keep in mind. Each time you choose a class is very directly correlated to what you're trying to do. So the light class, of course, you can imagine it's for moving fast. You don't make much noise. You're more of a sniper. Your goal is like just darting around the map as fast as possible, standing back, trying to avoid zombies. Because the problem with that class is, of course, not only are you going to die quickly first in PvP, but in PvE, the zombies will kill you really quick. So but you're harder to catch and harder for the zombies to spot you and all that stuff. And then the polar opposite of that is what we call the heavy. Which is, he's very slow. He's got the big machine guns, light machine guns, and he makes a lot of noise, but he has a lot of armor for protection against zombie attacks. So he's really good for, withstanding that stuff. But if you're like kind of, I would say, it all depends on what strategy you as a player, what do you want to do? And also, what is the other team doing? Like if the other team's nothing but light classes, then you're probably going to have fun as a heavy class because you're going to wreck house. But again, if you're just putting yourself out in the open, these guys are hanging out on the outskirts of the map, all just circling around and firing in, and it's going to be it might be an interesting thing. So it all depends on your play style. We wanted to find the medium class as being like that perfect balance point in the middle of being accessible to everybody and not easy, but more straightforward when dealing with the zombies and not necessarily any specific strategy that weighs in one direction or the other,
So one thing with that, then, I was noticing the medium and the heavy have a meager 6-inch hop when you press the space bar. It seems like they're more about vaulting over things or climbing on top of things when you get close and press the button. But what about lights? Do they have a little bit more airtime to them? Do they get a little bit more height? Do they still climb on things but climb faster and maybe can actually like do a ledge grab pull up sort of thing?
So the reason why we have the jump restriction in is two things. The biggest one's bunny hop prevention.
Yep.
The other one
Oh, thank goodness.
it's for us. We have very organic and destroyed environments, and it's very important for people to not exploit that when it comes to accessibility from the zombies and getting to places that just makes it absolutely unfair. Again, especially with these destroyed environments, it could be very, very bad sometimes with players. You would see them just getting places they absolutely should not be. So we intentionally marked up the levels all up with all the spots you can jump over, interact with. But yeah, we want to keep the freedom of jumping to a minimum. There definitely are some things you can do with that, but yeah, we don't want it to make it. This game, we're trying our hardest to not make that the focus. And jumping for the most part is in moving hazard because we feel that players expect to be able to jump in an FPS, and if they can't jump at all, it feels really weird. So
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it is now. I think it's a bug that we were working on this last week, but it's pretty annoying because yeah, like you would jump and and then you would hit spacebar, but because your stamina was low or out, you couldn't jump again. So the whole idea is like if you jump, it is going to take a good amount of stamina, so it might make other things like sprinting tougher to do, or you have to kind of just conserve and balance that when you're playing. But we're like, oh yeah, having them not jump at all, like that's something we have to fix, where you just do little jumps, kind of how like Battlefield or Call of Duty does, where they kind of restrict you down to smaller jumps, and it may not be as effective to like get around or get away from something. But yeah, it was in the early days, there was a lot of like that circle strafe, everyone jumping kind of chaos.
The one that really came to mind for me actually was Guild Wars 1. It had a jump. It was front/jump. It was, you just jump once and that's it.
Oh man,
That was
Yeah.
all.
that's one of the
you're not
reasons
going to be
why I couldn't
running
play
and
that
typing
game.
/ at the same
Yeah, I
time.
know. It was not a moving jump. It was just an emote.
Wow.
Well, back on like class types, or not necessarily class, but light, medium, heavy. So we know that players can choose one of those. Since we're weaponizing zombies, are we going to see different types of zombies as well?
Yes.
Yeah,
So there
no,
are.
definitely.
All right, you want to take that, Jack?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
right now there's two zombie types. It's basically in right now in kind of the PAX build, and it's your stage twos, which are kind of your typical shamblers. When you weaponize them, they get pretty brutal, and then stage threes, which I guess Kedhrin, you always kind of described it to the team as what was it like in like Double Dragon or something? Like you'd always
Yeah.
describe it as just that. And go ahead on
The
that one.
mid-level
So.
boss character that you would see, like the tough guy in the crowd, right? Like you see him and you're like, oh, that one's stronger than the others. Yeah, it's like the chick with the whip and Double Dragon, and you see her, it's like, oh shit, I gotta get this. Like, oh man, like so. That's kind of that's the approach. So you see like these lower, weaker zombies, and you can deal with them. But if you see the big ones coming around, you're just like, oh man, because they run at you, and especially if they get frenzied, they haul ass. So it's cool.
Now, there was something I kind of noticed with that. They the zombies had little tumors and stuff, and it was explained that if a zombie gets wounded, they'll potentially, at least in alpha, they can potentially get back up with a new limb, or it'll eventually regrow as this tumorous thing. But it seemed like they almost acted as armor hard points rather than an extension of a limb. So is that how they're meant to be? Is it supposed to be like if you hit that, lucky you just hit something that doesn't sustain damage?
It's kind
Yeah,
of
there's
like, I
literally
guess,
armor.
you're like giant zits in a way, right? Like it's armor, but it's also kind of this, these things that you shoot first, and they provide the zombie with a bit of armor. So like, and they're randomly generated too. So like, there could be one on its head, and it makes it harder to headshot the zombie. It could be on its chest. It's harder to take them down, but they are pretty random. So it is, it does provide armor against them, but we didn't want it like too penalizing. But it was kind of a cool a cool element that was kind of behind it. So
I did see one with the head tumor. It looked like Mugatu from Zoolander. It
yeah,
was pretty
totally.
hilarious.
Yeah, I think now that you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that looked like. Like it totally did. You're right.
Yeah.
um,
So I
but
just
yeah,
want
and
to,
even
before we,
Uh,
sorry, go ahead, finish up that.
oh
I
no,
have
no,
one more
I was
question.
just gonna, I was just gonna say, kind of based on the zombie types, we also have like two more kind of ready to go, and we're gonna probably unlock them during early access. But it's stage
Great.
fours, which are the guys that kind of crawl on all fours, but they're like the strongest. You might see one every now and then in a match, and it will, you know that they're coming, and it's kind of like an oh shit, let's get out of the way. They're totally after us, and you're gonna want to weaponize that guy because it's gonna be brutal. But like
Oh,
they can
nice.
do a lot of like jumping through the air, and they could actually where the other zombies can't get onto, like if you're on a roof or something. There's certain areas, pretty much all areas zombies can get to because that's kind of how we built the game. We didn't want someone like mantling on top of a roof and they're like, oh, I'm cool and I'm safe here. But for example, there's certain points like when you spawn or just certain areas that if a zombie, we kind of also wanted them a little bit dumb. So even though there's a ramp behind you that they can go to and get around, they still might just kind of stand on the ground and like claw up at you, and you might be safe from them. But this one will like fly around and can jump up there. Um, but the problem that we were having, we have that one, and then we also had the other like stage 5, which basically is the one that has like no legs and kind of crawls around on its arms very slowly and just reaches up at you. So it's more of a, you're not going to see him until he's already attacking you. And I think having those two in made it very
Ankle biter?
tricky. What's that?
Ankle biter.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah. And I think having all those in made it a bit tricky. As we're kind of refining the hook of the game, there was a lot of like, I think there was a lot of like what works and what doesn't work, what's gimmicky. Like, is this, is zombies being in here, like what makes what makes me want to use them as weapons? And that was a challenge we faced because the shooter mechanics are pretty good early on. So it's like, oh, it feels great as a shooter, but why do you want these in here? And I think removing, like when we had too much going on, we had to really like scale back and say, let's focus on making these first two stages really perfect and really good, and then we'll let the next one in. And I think, stage 4 needs more of that presentation of like, I'm hearing him in the distance, and oh, everyone's like, oh no, he's coming, like I'm scared kind of thing. And it's going to take us like a little bit to kind of get there, but we are getting to that point where we're able to kind of focus on that a lot more. And like soon here we're going to probably internally just let one out to see how it feels again, so and then past that, I mean, there's plenty of, that's kind of what we have planned for like the full release. But past that, or even things we might find from early access, there could be, I mean, there's so many cool things we want to play with, right? It's just a matter of like time and getting it out. Maybe some more stuff comes in a sequel or something, or a different version down the line or whatever. Like, I think there's so much that can be played with. So
Great.
Nice.
Well,
Very cool.
I just I was a little confused by Kedhrin's response about classes and the types. So is it that there's 3 types with some subclasses for each type, or is it just light, medium, and heavy, and that's it?
Just 3 classes with lots of loadouts.
Okay.
So you do have a loadout within their customization, and in there you have lots of different weapons, and you can choose tons of different attachments to the weapons, and you can do perks and your score streak, and so there's a lot of customization within the classes, but they still do
Okay.
maintain their rock paper scissors design.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Kremchek, any more questions?
Yeah, just one more thing about the zombies. Are we going to see like different, uh, like differently geared zombies? So like we have, you say the military in this game survived more than civilians. Are we going to see military personnel and heavily armored zombies as opposed to just everyone being in rags.
I think we can go forever and do so many cool things with this whole area. We've talked about how can we maximize so many. I mean, that'd be awesome. Yeah, you're talking about like the riot cop
Right.
zombie, right? Like just armored up and just totally. I would love to see stuff like that. I mean, I think those are just going to be things we will just discover if we're able to do it once we get into early access. But right now, our focus is let's make sure we get the core foundation rock solid, and then we can, I think, easily add on to it later on.
Great.
Very cool. Yeah.
Nero, I know you have a ton of questions.
Oh
so-
yeah, I sure do. So, I mean, I've kind of been looking over the list. There's a lot of stuff that we've kind of already talked about, but one of the things, in particular, that seemed a little bit interesting to me. Well, no, we talked about that one already. It was with the different factions. If the idea that you would have potentially rotation of factions or start points and that sort of stuff per map. So it isn't just the same two factions, or not only on top of that, it isn't the same start points for each faction, or even the same start points in general, to make it a little bit more dynamic.
So we have talked about the addition of the third faction. We have talked about that. Like I mentioned, it'd be aesthetic. But what would happen is every time you load into the level, it would randomly choose which of the two factions are present. As far as starting points and stuff like that, that may not change, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but whenever you spawn in every single map, we always spawn the player in an unreachable space from zombies or from enemy players, so there can't be just right out the gates. Like everyone can be at a pretty good even neutral ground, not immediately surrounded by zombies. So the levels are built very specifically for that. So I don't know about alternate spawn locations, but you certainly will get a little bit of flavor and variety with the addition of a third faction for sure.
Nice. Yeah, that'll be really cool. So we talked about restocking inventory. Let's see, loadouts. So stealth, that was actually something, and this kind of ties in with the light. So the light you said was supposed to be kind of quicker and a little bit quieter too. I didn't really see either any suppressors or at least anybody using suppressors. And it seems like trying to mitigate both the sound that you make and the light that you produce, and I guess the heat as well, if you can, would be really helpful towards stealth. But then there's also the other side of that, the impairment factor. If you've ever, I've never done it because I wouldn't want to, but if you've ever shot a 44 with no ear covers in a dark room, I'd imagine you essentially flashbang yourself. The sound of it in that contained space, because it's a loud gun, and the brightness because it was just dark and you just had something bright in your face. That seems like a bad situation. So, just in general, kind of how much is light and sound really going to play into things? Zombie detection, impacting players being able to mitigate it to sneak around more.
So
It's primarily.
sound is.
Oh, you go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead, Jack.
Oh no, you could go. It's all good. I could jump
I was-
in. So
Yeah, I was just going to say that sound is primarily either for you as a player hearing other players or zombies hearing you, right? So if you're firing a loud weapon, the zombies are going to be attracted to you. So of course, the heavy class, that's a lot of noise. So they're all going to come in the area if you start blasting away. But the sniper's default weapon is the crossbow, and that's of course very quiet, no noise generated at all. So you can have really, a very quiet experience, and zombies not really paying attention to you too much, which is why weaponizing is so important. Because if you pam zombies, they'll find you, even if you're not making noise. They're just, they're so alert and fine tuned at that point. So
they can smell you.
yeah, they can smell you. So it does. I would say that sound is the biggest out of all of them, and it certainly does have a big impact, but. I would say more so when it comes to players, you're just listening for other players and the spatialization of 3D sound to where the location is, and then the zombies are kind of doing the same thing. So,
and we had this issue at PAX that was kind of funny. We found it like maybe a couple weeks ago, but which kind of actually changed. We had to go back and like retune a lot of the zombie balance in a way because we kind of had this problem of when you would like that's why you definitely want a knife because if you're close to zombies you can a group of zombies but one maybe is after you or two maybe after you can knife them rather than shoot them because if you shoot them more are going to come after you and all the guns have different kind of weights based on what loudness would be that kind of alerts the AI zombies to you but it was this bug that anytime a zombie would die it would make a sound louder than like I think our loudest weapon, which was maybe I don't know the shotgun or like the M249 or something like that.
Uh-oh.
And so anytime you kill a zombie, it would just alert every single zombie on the map like, "Hey, come after me." So we were wondering, we're like, why is everyone just getting like just swarmed so much by zombies? And it was kind of a tough like. It was an issue that our tech director actually knew about the whole time, and he asked us a few times about it. And I just don't think anyone we were so busy, no one paid enough attention. So when we're like, well, we think there's this bug, like we don't know what it is, but all of a sudden, all the zombies seem to be on you. And he was like, oh yeah, it's because, and we're like, wait, what? So, so when we turned that off, we had to kind of rebalance everything because, all of a sudden, I mean, we were nerfing things so much to try to like fix this issue of we just thought that like maybe the gun was too loud or maybe when you're knifing the sound is loud so we just kept like balancing it down and then once he told us that we're like okay cool and we made the change and then we're actually able to like we finally had the proper system in place to be able to kind of balance the sounds against each other but there's also some other cool stuff too where there's different radiuses essentially of sound detection. So there is a bit of sound occlusion. So if you're inside a building, you're going to get like the sound's going to be a little bit more muffled. So if you're firing inside a building, the zombies outside, maybe ones at the door will hear you or like close to the wall will hear you. But for the most part, it does provide a little bit of dampening so you can, but the zombies are going to I don't think we've ever really played with, if you're firing inside a closed area, especially that has concrete floors or something, there's going to be a louder sound, and that's actually kind of cool to like do something like that. But it would take a bit of work. But yeah, we do have a little bit of like sound dampening to it as well. So
very cool. That's really sweet.
Yeah, and definitely like the silencer weapons are really good because I mean obviously those always affect. Like things like it can slow down fire rate, it can make things a little less like damage wise, but there's always some sort of trade-off when you use a silencer, but it is kind of that weapon that allows you to like not alert zombies as easy. Like you have a lot less of a distance they're going to hear you.
That just reminded me of something. It seems like it's maybe too close a range a game for it to really matter. Is there actually bullet drop?
So all our bullets are ray trace, and there is damage fall off, but the bullets don't fall. Like you're talking about, like dropping in the air. Yeah,
okay, cool. I think for the balancing of this game, that makes sense. It's not like long range, like 400 meter shots or yard/meter. It'd be looking at the wind and checking your scope and all of that, and then you headshot the person 30 seconds later. It definitely makes more sense for the context of this. You're trying to just focus on running and shooting and what I guess what was the year before the zombie apocalypse began? Like, did that happen today, or is this like maybe 25 years from now when it started? So tech is a little bit more advanced.
I don't exactly recall the exact date. That's definitely more of a Christian question. I do believe it was a little bit further in the future from now, but not anything crazy going into we got sci-fi land or anything like that.
Okay, cool.
So it's not. There's not. I mean, there is technologies that were developed for and around the zombies. So like whenever they were trying to weaponize them and create them, and then in the post-apocalypse, they kept researching stuff on how to control them and stuff like that. So
Okay, I get you.
I have a question about hideouts and perks that I'd like to get to at some point,
Go for
but
it.
I know Neuro still no, you still have a bunch more questions. So I'm actually wondering if everybody is good with going to the half-hour mark. We're normally going to stop this at just an hour. Can you guys go a half hour over or 20 minutes over, or should we try and wrap up in a few minutes?
We can keep going, or if you guys wanna, we can. There's a lot more to talk about. We can always talk about it another time. I mean, whatever you guys want to do.
Oh yeah, I mean, we'd love
Uh,
to have you back and talk about this some more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so do you want to wrap
yeah,
up
there's a
now?
lot.
You want to go another half hour, or what do you want to do?
Well, I think if we're gonna start talking about perks and stuff and the upgrades, I mean, I definitely feel like I could rant forever on that. So,
Okay.
um,
I
so
was
that's
kind of thinking vaguely, but
Yeah, just a
yeah, we
brief
can.
overview.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I don't know. What do you feel, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, I'm down for whatever, but yeah, I agree. I think that could be a whole separate like stream and
So
Nice.
why don't we just really quickly just give us the basic concept of hideouts? That's something that we're kind of going. That's a place we're going to. That's outside of the mission session, right? It's like our own personal space. It doesn't exist within the multiplayer space.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it
We're going.
like it's all kind of well, I'll give kind of just the quick overview, and then Kedrin can drill down more because he kind of knows all the functionality on everything. But really, it's like, yeah, the hideout is kind of outside of the game, but we wanted a deep meta, so we wanted to be able to have you have the player kind of keep coming back, and it's something that like Payday 2, for example, did really well. So it always had incentives for people to kind of come back, continue to play, continue to unlock things. I think that's kind of the intention behind it. So in the hideout section, you have the ability, like obviously, to kind of customize your loadouts, and then you also have the and unlock like weapons, attachments, mods, perks, like a ton of stuff, and then same unlock them and then buy them, and then and we're talking about in-game currency because it's not like you have to pay like cash for those. You earn the cash in game, and then basically the hideout like perk section, you kind of it's more upon your persistent character. So you can unlock specific skills, and those will they can make you slightly faster, and that's for every character for as long as you play. And then obviously once you max all that stuff out, you can then go prestige and basically start it all over again. So
And so maybe a correlation I have real quick is the kind of perk that or achievement, I don't know, that you might gain. Is that from like if I look at the leaderboard at the end, let's say that I don't kill a bunch of people, but I hold the area. I have high points for holding an area. Could that give me a perk if that's what I was like specialized at is the holding but not the killing?
There
Does that make
are. I'm
sense?
not. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any perks directly related to the game modes because the game modes are so varied, you know. But there is if you're actively engaging, I strongly always recommend what you're saying if you're actually more about the objectives, and that's I think what this whole thing's called the metagame, and we call I consider that anybody who's actively engaging the objective should be rewarded the most with metagame interaction because that's so you're gonna have your players that just come in and all they do is kill people. You're gonna have players that come in, all they do is kill zombies, and then you got players that come in there and try to strategize like crazy with the mechanics of weaponizing zombies, and then you got players that are gonna come in and play the objectives, right? And that's all they're gonna do is play the objective every time. Oh, I'm in, capture and hold. I'm in the King of the Hill mode. That's what I'm gonna do every single time. And for those players, yeah, we want to reward you the most. So you already kind of have a massive reward attached. So it's like you're going to be the one that's leveling up the fastest for sure. and speeding through the metagame if you're actively engaging the objectives all the time. So there's going to be, if anything, you're just going to get so many perks that you can use to customize your loadout to specifically give you advantages to, like, running faster or whatever, like certain things like that. So I would say that you already have a leg up there, but there's certain perks that you're going to get quicker that make you get to that 50 point even faster. So players that are trying to race to prestige, course playing well, weaponizing zombies, and using the objectives is definitely what you want to do as a player trying to get to that high end point,
Very cool. Very
Great.
cool. All right. Well, we're getting close to the hour mark here, so it sounds like we should probably just think about doing some more of these with you guys. Probably after the show, we'll talk about details with that. But yeah, that's I'm really excited for that, 'cause let me tell you, I got a lot to ask you guys about this, and it's going to be more than another hour episode. Let me tell you that much.
Great.
Deal.
Yeah, definitely.
And
No, it'd be fun.
hopefully, more content's coming out too. So, and hopefully we can, once early access is out, we can be playing it during it. It's great.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for the
Yeah.
early access to be able to just kind of sit down and play to my heart's content with everybody and shoot Dygz and Krem, mostly Krem. I have it out for that guy when we play first-person shooters. It just happens.
I have
Absolutely.
a knack for shooting teammates, so watch out.
Yeah, you do. All right, well then let's just kind of go around a little quick wrap ups and everything. So, Krem, why don't we start with you?
Kremchek, I don't really do much anymore. Bye.
Oh,
Catch me here.
come on, you do more than that. The WGN streams and everything. But,
Oh, WJN, yeah. Neuro will
yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah, Dygz, of course, not only Moving Hazard, but the previous show and of course the other stuff.
Revival Cast, Theory Forge. I have just started streaming, and I have two channels on my YouTube account. One is Dygz reacts to Dankest Crown's Rock, which is me reacting to Ombwa's gameplay of Darkest Dungeon.
It's hilarious.
And then I also just started a series of Dygz playing Darkest Dungeon, so you can compare the two gameplay styles. That's it. I'm looking forward to doing more of a Hazardous play, and looking forward to, I just want to shout out again that we are thinking that early access for Moving Hazard should be starting in March.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, and we'll have definitely more details on that soon for sure. But yeah, March, and keep your ears open here real soon. So
Cool deal. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm really excited for that, and like Krem was saying, yeah, he and I are the main streamers on Who's Gaming Now on the 8 to 10 shows Monday through Thursdays when we're on, and definitely once the game's ready to stream, be looking for us on there. Be looking to join matches with us on there, because we're gonna definitely be playing the crap out
Oh, yeah.
of it. We might actually be pretty good by the time you try shooting at us, to be warned.
He will.
I can't wait. We need more challengers, right? No, I'm kidding.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I
I'll be
mean,
bait, and then he'll beat you guys.
They're pretty good in the office, but it was really fun at PAX South to play against a lot of people, and just like, I mean, there was sometimes where I had to work so hard to beat someone that just was like their second or third match, and they wanted to play us. They're like, "Can we play the devs?" We're like, "Okay," and we're like, "Let's go easy," and then we like went easy, and I'm like, "Wow, these guys are actually really good." And then like by the end of it, I was ready to take a nap. I was like exhausted. So
nice. Awesome. Cool deal. If there's any last things, Chuck or Kedhrin, that you guys wanted to say, go for it. Otherwise, we'll be closing it down.
Yeah, make sure you sign up on the forums. I think we do giveaways. I think we're still doing those, right, Chuck, on the forums?
yeah, there's still key giveaways. We also there's key giveaways. We are going to be doing some stress testing here soon too, on kind of a a closed beta. I don't know how open that's going to get, but if you're on the forums and there is, we are going to probably want to pull people from there to kind of help us a bit before it goes to early access. So, so yeah, there's a lot I think to get involved. The best places, yeah, definitely the forums. Follow us on Twitter, at Moving Hazard, at IllPhonic, at Psyop Games, and at Kedhrin. I use pretty much the IllPhonic one, so.
I do have
Kedhrin's
one
might
more
be a
quick
little crazy,
question. Will we be seeing a Texan version of the SoCal video? If that made any sense, the SoCal training video. Will we be seeing a Texan Confederation training video anytime soon? Do you know?
That would be pretty cool.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the marketing plans behind that. I mean, yeah, I think if I think if everyone likes that one, it would be cool. I think
Yes.
I never thought about that actually. Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay,
Please.
cool. I will bring it up for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
You can see what that would be like. Oh, first field walls forever.
Salt,
No, we're
rifle,
trying not to
bacon.
stereotype here. So like, we did pretty heavy, I think, on the California one with the California girl. So, but I was from Northern California, so that was kind of probably our, like, our little jab at our Southern California folk.
We still don't get snow.
I know, right? Yeah, and it's always 70 and always nice, and
Sometimes
Yeah,
we get rain.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes. It's
No,
rained
I lived
5
down there
times.
for 7 years. I love it. So,
Cool deal. All right. Well, we will see you folks next time. You will see us next time. And when that next time is, we will let you know. Have a good week, everybody, and we will see you later.
you too. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.